Okay, it is now 6 o'clock, and I will call to order this regularly scheduled Shawnee Mission School District Board of Education meeting. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and recite the pledge with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda is the board member oath of office for the three of us who just won election.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Kansas and faithfully discharge the duties of a Board of Education member for Unified School District 512. So help me God. Congratulations.
My computer died. Can I borrow yours for just a second? Sure. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Oh, no. Yep, that's right. Let's take a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Goodburn.
Is there a second?
Second, Sinclair.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And the next item is item 2.1, the organization of the Board of Education. So our board handbook, let's see where the policy is. Sorry. I know you have it up already. Okay. So paragraph 17 in our board handbook provides for the nomination and election of board officers. And the election of board officers is to occur on the first January meeting, and that is this evening. So we are going to first do the board president election, and then whoever is successful in that will then run the elections for the other seats here on the board. And we have two individuals who are nominated to run for board president. Dr. Sinclair, would you be willing to serve if you were to win the board election?
I will.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Goodburn, you were also nominated. Would you be willing to serve should you be elected?
I appreciate the nomination, but no.
Okay.
I would not be willing to serve.
Okay, thank you. So what I'll do then is I will present a motion to elect Dr. Mary Sinclair as our next board president.
I need to see if anybody else wants to be nominated from the floor.
Well, I can, yes.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to be nominated from the floor? It doesn't look like anyone else wants to be nominated from the floor, Mary, so thank you. All right, so I have a motion for Dr. Mary Sinclair to be the next board president of the Shawnee Mission School District. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Hearing none, that passes. Thank you. So now, I get to move.
Oh, your laptop.
Thank you.
All right. So, thank you. I appreciate the vote of confidence. We have actually 5 other positions to elect this evening, so we'll just go down the line for each position. So our next officer will be for vice president, and we have 2 nominees for vice president. So I'll begin and ask each candidate. Ms. Goodburn, would you be willing to serve as vice president?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jessica Hembry has also been nominated to serve as vice president. Ms. Hembry, are you willing to serve as vice president?
I will defer to Sarah. No,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So we have 1 candidate, which means we can take a voice vote. So do I have a motion to elect Sarah Goodburn as our vice president?
I would like to make a motion to elect Sarah Goodburn as our vice president.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Owsley. Do we have a second?
Second, Borgman?
Okay, we have a second, Ms. Borgman. Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And
Aye.
all opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. So our new vice president is Sarah Goodburn. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Congratulations.
All right, let's move one more time.
Oh, we don't need to. Let's just stay
Good?
for the meeting.
Okay, all right.
We're good.
Okay. All right, so the next position is for SMAC PTA representative. Again, we have 2 nominees. So Jessica Hembry, let me begin with you. Would you be willing to serve as SMAC PTA representative for the board?
Yes, happy to serve.
Okay. And April Boyd-Norena, you have also been elected or nominated to serve as SMAC PTA representative. Would you be willing to serve?
I would be willing to serve, yes.
Okay, so in this case, we have 2 nominees, so we have paper ballots. So if you look on your paper ballot, then you would write down the candidate. I should also see if there is anyone else from the floor who would like to be nominated. Okay. So in this case, then, use your ballot for SMAC PTA representative and indicate the candidate, and then pass that down to our board clerk,
How do I not do that?
and sign your ballot.
Yeah, did I leave?
Oh, these are yours. Nope, these are yours.
All right.
And then, Ms. Hembry, if you could email in your vote to Ms. Wintering.
I just sent that, Terry.
I have it. I don't. Got it. Okay, ready? Okay, Ms. Hembry voted for Ms. Hembry. Dr. Sinclair voted for Ms. Hembry. Mrs. Goodburn voted for Ms. Boyd-Norona. Ms. Owsley voted for Ms. Hembry. Ms. Borgman voted for Ms. Hembry. Ms. Boyd-Norona voted for Ms. Hembry. And Mr. Stratton voted for Ms. Hembry. So, it was 6-1.
Okay, so the vote passed 6-1 for Ms. Hembry to serve as our SMAC PTA representative. Thank you, and thank you both for your willingness to serve in that position. Greatly appreciated.
You need a motion?
Oh.
No, never mind, you just did.
We
Never
just
mind,
voted, we're
I'm
good.
sorry. Okay. You're
Right,
good.
paper ballot was the vote. Okay. All right, so we also have 2 nominees for KASB Board of Directors. So let me begin with the 2 candidates. Mr. Stratton, would you be willing to serve as the representative for KASB Board of Directors?
Yes, I would.
All right, thank you. And the other candidate is Jamie Borgman. Ms. Borgman, would you be willing to serve as KASB Board of Directors representative?
I will decline, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we now have 1 candidates, so we will take a voice vote. So I need a motion to nominate Mr. Stratton for KSB Board of Directors.
So move, Goodburn, sorry.
All right, and a second?
Second, Borgman?
Borgman, all right, thank you. Okay, all in favor say, oh, do we have any other candidates who would be for a nomination? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so I probably did that out of order. My apologies. So the motion to vote for Brad Stratton, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Hembry. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. And then we have two candidates for the nominating committee. So I'll begin with there. Ms. Borgman, would you be willing to serve as the KSB representative for the nominating committee?
Yes.
Okay. I was also nominated, and I will decline. Is there anyone else who wants to be any other nominees from the board this time? Okay, so we can proceed on a voice vote. So I need a motion to elect Ms. Jamie Borgman as KSB nominating committee representative.
So move, Goodburn.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Owsley. That's second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Hembry. I'm sorry about that. And opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. All right, thank you, Ms. Borgman, for your willingness to serve. All right, the final position is for KSB Legislative Committee, and we have one nominee, Ms. Heather Owsley. So again, would you be willing to serve?
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other nominees from board members? Okay, again, I believe we can proceed with voice vote. So I need a motion to nominate Ms. Heather Owsley as KSB Legislative Committee member.
So moved.
A second?
Second, Borgman?
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear no nays, so that motion passes 7-0. Thank you. And Ms. Hembry, I'm sorry I'm cutting you off there. Okay, we also have a couple other committees on the form that you all received asking for interest in serving on those other committees. If you haven't already submitted those to Ms. Wintering, if you could do that in the next week or so, and then I'll have those appointments for our next board meeting, January 24th. Okay. All right.
Congratulations. Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations, everybody. All right, I believe it was at this point in the meeting in the past, we've allowed just a moment for newly elected board members to say a few words. If anybody would like to do that, that would be a good time.
I would, yes.
Great.
First and foremost, I cannot move forward without thanking one special person who helped me get to actually sitting in this spot tonight, which is my love, Milton Jeffrey Sr. Many people know him in the community, and he has just further spurred my love and passion and vision for doing the same on the Shawnee Mission School District. Of course, I want to thank my family for tagging along, and all those, all caps underlined, all those that were behind the scenes, the volunteers, voters, door knockers, the driveway hosts, etc., that got me here as well. Must have a moment of appreciation for Reverend Laura Guy. It's awesome to have the opportunity to follow in her footsteps. We all know that this is a historic moment for Shawnee Mission School District, being elected as the first black school board member at this time and as the school district is formed. But in saying that, I must give credit where credit surely is due, and history told correctly is paramount. So a little known or an interesting fact about black history in Johnson County is that in 1966, Mrs. Virginia Sewing was elected as the first black official to the Shawnee Mission School District's advisory board in 1966. So I proudly stand on her shoulders and was blessed to be able to meet her and sit with her for about 3 hours and just hear about her history and how she was a trailblazer for even me to be able to sit here tonight in 1966 in Johnson County. So I'm standing on her shoulders as well, and glad that she's alive to even see this and share this journey with me. So thank you.
I didn't prepare any remarks for this evening, but I will just briefly say thank you so much to Dr. Sinclair. I'm really excited for your tenure as board president, and I am thankful to be serving with this group of 7 for the next 4 years. 4 whole years.
I did not prepare remarks either, but I would just take this opportunity to thank all of the folks who were out there campaigning. It was an intense campaign this cycle, so thank you to all the volunteers who knocked doors and sent letters and made phone calls, and appreciate it, and just help share kind of message, so appreciate that a lot. Okay, so we are moving on into part 3 of our workshop meeting. And so we'll begin with 4.01, the superintendent report. And I believe Dr. Gilhouse will be doing that for us this evening.
Well, thank you. I'd like to begin by wishing Dr. Hubbard a speedy recovery as she continues to be under the weather, and we hope to see her back in action very soon. I mean it, very soon. So the Reflections reception just before tonight's meeting, we were pleased to recognize awardees in the Shawnee Mission Area Council PTA Reflections program. This year, students submitted their artistic creations in a variety of mediums centered on the theme, I Will Change the World By. We were thrilled to see the student submissions and congratulate the students here at the Center for Academic Achievement. We invite all of our community to view their work. We will include a link in the recap to the SMAC PTA District Reflections online exhibit. Outstanding music educator, Hope Reagan, Shawnee Mission South Area Elementary and Middle School String Teacher, is the Outstanding Elementary String Teacher of the Year, as named by the East Central Kansas Music Education Association. Reagan was honored for her encouragement to students and contributions to strings programs in our state. And on a similar note, about 200 Shawnee Mission School District students have been selected to perform in district honor groups for the East Central KMEA. These orchestra, jazz band, and choir musicians were selected through a rigorous audition process and are considered among the best of the best student musicians in state. Coach of the Year. The National Federation of State High School Associations named Andy Gibbs, Shawnee Mission East tennis coach, and NFHS Section Coach of the Year for girls tennis. This honor placed him in the running to be considered for the National Coach of the Year. Honorees are nominated by the Kansas Coaches Association and considers involvement in professional organizations, coaching philosophy, and involvement with school and community activities and programs. Congratulations, Coach Gibbs. Student Panel on Screen Time, an event for parents and guardians, will be held soon, focused on students and screen time. SMSD students will serve on a panel, sharing their experiences as they learn using technology. Attendees will walk away with ideas and tips for parenting in the digital age. The event will be at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, January 25th at the Center for Academic Achievement, and we'll include a link in the recap for those that are wanting to register. Read Across SMSD. I wanted to provide an update on Read Across SMSD. This initiative, hosted in partnership with NEA Shawnee Mission, continues to promote reading throughout our community. Each month, we focus on a new theme. In December, we concentrated our theme on lending a hand. Dr. Christy Ziegler, Chief of Student Services, and Mike Raudebush, Operations and Maintenance Forum, and students from Westridge's Heart of a Wildcat Club helped us launch the video and inspired a lot of conversation about how we all can help one another. This month's theme is Try Something New. Indian Hills Middle School students, Principal Blake Ravel and Jill Funk, district nutritionist took a taste test and encouraged all of us to kick off the new year with a sense of adventure. We thank all of our video hosts and encourage everyone to continue to read across SMSD. Inclement weather. I wanted to highlight that last week we shared our inclement weather procedures for the school year. These procedures included 3 plans, A, B, and C, outlining what families, students, and staff members will need to do if there is a school closure. We shared it broadly, and we will link it again to the recap. Plan C is a remote learning plan, and Plan C is our last resort for us due to the 40-hour state restrictions. We have also received a variety of questions about how we decide whether to close a school or not, and how we will decide which plan to be used. All of these decisions are made on a case-by-case basis. Board Recognition Month. January is School Board Recognition Month. We wanted to be sure to take a moment and thank you for all that you do for Shawnee Mission students. Tonight you will see student artwork presented in the boardroom in your honor. These works of art represent students from all feeder patterns from grades pre-K through 12. We also present you tonight with a set of cards that feature this student artwork. We will include a listing of all of the students selected for this exhibit in tonight's recap and thank them so much for sharing their talents with us. We also thank Megan Ellis, the district's visual arts coordinator, Tosh Davis, communication specialist, and Terry Wintering, clerk of the board, for their help in presenting the student work. It all too often gets forgotten that everyone who serves on our board does so on a volunteer basis. Board members make challenging decisions and dedicate so much of their time and energy in support of our students and our staff. We thank you for filling these crucial roles and for all that you do for the Shawnee Mission School District. So thank you all for your service. That concludes the superintendent report.
Thank you, Dr. Gilhouse. Oh, let me turn this on. Thank you, Dr. Gilhouse. All right, moving on to discussion items. We have 6 items on the, oh no, actually we have one more communications item. We have Dr. Stuart Little here, our lobbyist for the legislature. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Madam President. I hope I'm the first person that gets to say that to you. My name is Stuart Little. I'm with Little Government Relations in Topeka. We do the advocacy work with members of our delegation in Topeka. I'm going to give you all a brief update of where we are in terms of the kind of what in general we think is coming here during this legislative session, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that arise. Today is the beginning of the legislative session, so 1 down, 89 to go in my book sometimes, but we are, a couple things to note about this legislative session, about this year. This is a carryover year, so all of the bills that we dealt with last year are still alive, and so they come forward into this year. So there are some pretty significant ones. In particular, one that I think is going to get attention again, which is the educational savings account bill. That was part of a package of legislation that then didn't pass. It is likely going to come up again that fits into some of the issues that folks want to have a conversation about. There was kind of during late November into December, we had the interim committee on education, which was a joint House and Senate committee, and they spent a tremendous amount of time and energy focusing on a couple of issues, funding and achievement, and then on the authority of the state board. And part of this was designed from some folks, and you know, it's no secret that there are a portion of the legislature who are interested in looking at making changes in terms of funding and changes in terms of based on perceptions about how we're measuring achievement on the authority of the State Board of Education and frankly the authority that you all have as the local school board. So a lot of those topics got a very healthy airing during those 2 days of the hearings, and I reported on that, and you can watch it on YouTube again. And that shape, those conversations are going to shape a great deal what we have in front of us this legislative session. And so as we get into the legislative session, and we'll be working with you all and then also communicating with our legislators and those that are on the key committees to make sure that they're aware of what's going on as we get through the process. There is, it's kind of as I described, a sentiment to look at, and I think we're probably going to get bills, potentially constitutional amendments that talk about restructuring the delivery of the organization and delivery of education in Kansas. If you listen to the interim committees, there were lots of conversations about how the constitutional authority that exists in the Constitution for the State Board of Education provides them latitude, and the legislature's only means of getting engaged in that conversation are by making statutory changes. So if you think about some of those issues that are no strangers to the conversations that you all are having in terms of masks, in terms of hours that you can be virtual, in terms of curriculum, whether those are issues of some of the things that were around last year that will come back, the civics education program, the financial literacy obligation, but also getting in to questions of and issues related to how we're teaching the concept of race, of history, of the issues that surround that, and how some people are using those conversations as means to talk about the curriculum and the desire to which they may want to try to impose some kind of oversight controls, have some more control come from the legislature, whether that's through the state board or through some kind of statutory issues. So those same kinds of things that are happening at the local level are part of the conversation in Topeka. It's unclear exactly how that's going to play out in terms of what's going to be pursued. We do have a lot of conversation about bills that are going to be introduced. We've got a number of bills about critical race theory. We're going to have probably some constitutional amendments about board authority, about state Board of Education authority. And we're also going to continue to have, and this kind of ties back to the full circle, I mentioned the education savings account. And this is an incredibly complex issue, and I know we've had some healthy conversations about this, and the legislature's trying to work through it in terms of student achievement, and part of the conversation from folks who want to see some change in the organization of education in Kansas are talking about, what are the measures of achievement? We've added money in the Gannon lawsuit. How has that impacted student achievement? And that you have that conversation when you don't have a conversation about all the other things that are part of what we measure in achievement, the Rose capacities, most importantly, that the legislature put into the statute and said, you have to do a whole bunch of other things. Besides student testing, you have to deal with social emotional growth and all those kinds of other things that aren't quite measurable. So that's an issue where we're going to talk about funding, and that's where we come back to the conversation about the education savings account bill that came up and those kinds of things. That's clearly going to be, again, part of the conversation. But I think to wrap up here, a couple of other issues I want to mention. In addition to some of those very specific funding issues, authority of you all, authority of the State Board of Education, I think one thing that's going to be fairly significant is it seems like a conversation kind of outside of where we are, but back to public health. The issue is the vaccination issues in Kansas, and COVID has stirred a very strong conversation about vaccines, but there's also about the COVID vaccine, but there are implications on the regular vaccines that the state requires to attend public schools, to go to child care, those kinds of things. We're going to see, I believe, a very vigorous attempt to modify those standards. There was a bill last legislative session that has an impact. There was a bill during the special session that was introduced. It's dead. It's alive for the 12 hours of the special session, but that's going to come back as well. So, those are public health issues and vaccinations, but those have a tremendous impact on what you all, as a school board, and what the state may be able to manage and articulate and regulate about students requiring to be vaccinated, not just like COVID, but regular vaccines in the school. And that's an issue I think that is coming, and I don't think we've necessarily talked about it very much in terms of the impact on school districts. And I kind of just note that is coming. I think we literally haven't had any hearings yet. We're going to get started There are, every issue that we talked about last year is on the table. It is back, and we've had some glimpses at the interim committee and some of the other things about where we're going. So I think this is going to be probably the most active year we've had in a while, because to conclude, this is a re-election year. We've got the governor's race. Every member of the Kansas House of Representatives is running for re-election. None of the senators are, because they only all run at the same time. But so we're going to have elections. We're going to have lots of folks that want to get votes on things and pursue issues. And so we're liable to see kind of everything under the sun this year, which ought to keep us busy. And I'll do my best. I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Little. I would imagine we have some questions from the board. And why don't we begin with Ms. Owsley? I don't think you've gotten to go first in a couple of years now, so jump in.
I'm kind of
And then we'll move to the right.
I'm giddy. Dr. Little, I just had a question with regards to the emergency order issued by the governor. And it was solely limited to, I think, hospitals and how they operate. But is there some sort of connection from the bill that was passed last year on limiting districts' ability to do digital learning? It had exceptions in it for if the state was operating under a state of emergency. Would this state of emergency qualify for that exception? Do you know?
I would hesitate to venture an answer to the specifics of that and would defer to your attorney, obviously. It may, I don't know the specifics of how that 40-hour cap was tied, and if that was something that may have to come within that 15, because part of what the legislature did, and including doing that, was they limited an emergency order from the governor to 15 days, requiring an approval by the State Finance Council, and then put a limit on it, so it would have to come back and be renewed with regularity, so that there would be legislative consent to whatever the governor wanted to do. I can't answer that specific question about the 40 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stratton?
As we begin the new session, one of the things we're always proud of is the advocacy that we do as board members to our elected leaders back in Topeka, and a couple of us are going to start that tomorrow over there with the rest of our peers with KSB. My question is, the finance picture looks different this year than it has in years past, and that is the surplus funds, I shouldn't say surplus, additional funds that state tax revenues have generated, combined with the dollars that come to school districts and other municipalities through the federal programs. My question is, do you feel that we need to educate the legislators on what we can and cannot spend the money on, specifically around those federal dollars, or do you get the perception that some of them think we're flush because of the federal dollars?
Well, there is, and I appreciate the question, there is a perception that a lot of these dollars came in, and I think what they're looking at is some of the dollars that came to the State Department or directly to you all were fit into categories and were required to be spent in certain areas. And there's a reporting process, and there's an accountability for that for school districts. I think one of the things that makes it confusing is that the state has a huge chunk of money that they're essentially sitting on now. I think it's about $1.2 billion at this point of the ARPA funds that still can be spent out there. So when you look at the scale of dollars that came out, and I know some of the gotcha ideas that folks used during interim committees and last year about how much money did your schools get, well, everybody was doing all kinds of mitigation issues, and it's out there, there's a perception, but I think it's when folks talk about how it's been spent, that's articulated in a way that's within the boundaries of what was needed. I don't get a sense that folks think the school districts are flush with money, but I think one of the issues, and I only use this because it's used to have a critique of it, is that we're in the next to the last year, I believe, of the whole Gannon equalization payments, and so we are theoretically, after next year, just back to where we were supposed to be in 2012 or 13. But the court has said you need to get back to that level, and then we're going to, that's going to make, in some ways, make something. So there are people who look at, again, I come back to that achievement score, the student assessments, and see that as a measure, or look at other assessments that are not even as reflective of that, or some of the work that you all are doing here locally in terms of assessments, and say, we're spending all this money and we're not seeing anything for it. That's, I think, the federal relief money just becomes another tool that they add to saying, look at all these things that exist, and we need to just keep articulating that those are separate and distinct purposes that those dollars for. I apologize for the long answer, but these things are getting more and more complex all the time.
Well, thank you, and continue to let us know how we can help educate along the way, because it is complex. Thanks.
Ms. Boyd-Nerona?
And to add to your last comment, that yes, these issues are becoming more complex, and even in reference to what I'm hearing you say is that the cultural and community challenges are going to directly impact a lot of these issues and bills being set forth or continue to be set forth. So in continuation of what Brad had just asked, what more can the community and persons that may represent cultural populations do? What more can the average person do? We are thankful for you there lobbying, but we know that the voices of many can bring about change too. What are the things those listening here and at later time looking at the broadcast can be done from that standpoint?
You know, that's a fascinating question, because I had a conversation with a couple of folks here in the county about some of these topics. I think some of these issues, and your point in particular is there is let me find the right way to phrase this. There is a conversation taking place about some of the curriculum issues and some of those kind of conversations that are talking about, that are describing it as an imposed program upon people to try to shape thinking or shape those kinds of things. And that's how, when you're looking at this critically, you're saying, oh, this is something that's being delivered to people, whether it's teachers or students, and whether it's whatever. Think about it. I think there is a need, whether it is listened to or not, for folks in the community to say there is a logical reason why we as patrons and parents and supporters of the school district need to have these conversations. And it's not someone telling us what to do. It is us talking about how we all need to have conversations in a better way. And I feel like it's too often, oh, we're doing a program, we're doing something like that, and it satisfies a box and checks somebody, and nobody cares what it says. I think having a conversation about how a community is committed to broadening the conversation and the engagement and the inclusion of people, that's something that's missing from the conversation. Number one, to get to your question. The second part of this is, I think back, and some of you that have been around with the district for a long time, remember back in the late 2008, 2009, 2010, when we're slashing budgets, and there was a sense of collaboration and cooperation and engagement among school districts and folks in the community. Now, I understand everybody's stressed and strained and those kind of things, but I mean, essentially the kinds of issues that we're facing this year are on par with where we were in 2009, 2010, when there were hundreds of millions of dollars going away. And so I think having some voices talking about the rationale and the reason and what it adds to a student or a parent's experience, but also more collaboratively talking about this is something that we all as a group, particularly here in Johnson County, can have conversations about working together. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
It does, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Borgman?
Hi, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your brief summary. I wanted to ask you about, where everybody is just tired and busy and just, trying to do their best to just get through the day. So is there one bill, one conversation that's happening or that will be happening under the dome that you really want people to pay attention to? If there's one thing that's on somebody that you want people to put on their radar this session, what would that be?
I'm not certain what that will be. I think what we're going to have by the time we get to the end of the legislative session is a big bundle of things all put together that are going to check off boxes for groups of people. And to gain A, support to get it passed, but B, to demonstrate to people on the outside who are watching, we're standing up for you on whatever it's X, Y, or Z. So it's going to have a lot of things in it. I mean, whether it's going to be some, the education savings account bill that comes back, something more even than that. It's probably going to be wrapped up with something that's going to have to do with the kind of materials that you can provide in your curriculum. It may have something to do with the kinds of words that you will be allowed to have people talk to students, and all of those things may be kind of bundled up together. And you can see in some other states things that are going on where people are putting things under the banner of this is, the new choice, the new reform, the new package. So I can't name any one thing. There's a whole bunch of things that you all would have to contemplate, as these are the kinds of things that are, valued. And I don't, there's not anything out there right now that stands other than some of the things that came up last year. But I think whatever we're going to get at the end is going to be interesting.
A lot of defense, it sounds like, from a public education perspective. Ms. Hembry, do you have any questions for Dr. Little?
No additional questions from me. Thank you, Stuart, for the great report.
Okay. Ms. Goodburn?
Nothing for me.
I'll close it out with just maybe some budget questions. So there's going to be a lot of extraneous conversation kind of that seems to be outside the bounds of maybe the primary responsibility of the legislative session, but there are two funding components that are really important to Shawnee Mission, and I can't remember the deadline. So one is around the high density at risk, and there was a sunset added to that component, right? There was the high density at risk funding in the formula was given an additional year or two of life. When is that set to sunset?
The last year of the high density at risk by school building, which is how we utilize it here in Shawnee Mission as opposed to some other school districts, would be in the 22-23 school year.
Okay, so if it doesn't get addressed this year, there is next year still to address that part of the formula. Okay.
Yes.
And then the other piece is that IDEA funding, whether at the federal level or at the state level, to provide the mandated level of funding for special education services, costs Shawnee Mission about $8 million a year out of the general operating budget. And at one point, it seemed like there was maybe some conversation maybe happening at the federal level around IDEA or state. Is that something that is just probably does have any likelihood of seeing daylight this session?
I have not heard an active conversation about that of late here in Kansas. At the federal level, I don't know that I can speak to that. I know I can't. But here, that has not been something that we've engaged in conversations, the circles I'm in. But I think, obviously, as we're gearing back up, if that comes up in conversation, and I will even affirmatively talk with some of our colleagues about that.
Okay. Thank you very much for your report. If there are, I think, any other questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Little. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. The next, okay, so that moves us to the discussion item. So first on the discussion item is 5.1, the communications program evaluation. And I will look to Dr. Gilhouse to.
Yes, going to turn it over to Mr. David Smith, our Chief Communication Officer, and his team to update us on the communication program.
Thank you, Dr. Gilhouse, and thank you, Madam President. It's good to say that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the board and you're taking a chance to read our program evaluation. My colleague, Mr. Knapp, when he does his evaluation, he's able to spread a lot of money around. Our Our currency is words, and we gave you all the words we had.
Yeah.
So we thank you for taking the time to read them. We are a team, a communications team, and it's how we get our work done. I want to introduce the team to you. My colleagues, Kristen Babcock and Michaela Scruggs. In the back, he is here every time. Clayton Turrentine, sort of behind the screen. And then our other videographer, Tom Stevens. Also, you know Tash Davis. She has done lots of work with the PTA. She's our administrative assistant. And Mandy Lavelle is our designer. Because one of the things we do along with having lots of words, we do a lot with video. And we prepared for you a brief video that we're going to begin our presentation with.
Great. To take you through a deeper dive into our work, I'm going to turn things over to my colleagues, Michaela Scruggs and Kristen Babcock.
Thank you, David. I want to get that video to stop playing, but I also want to say an extra word of thanks to Clayton Turrentine and Tom Stevens, who produced that video. And we will be breaking down that video throughout our presentation using the 5 essential questions that we often use in storytelling: who, what, when, where, and why. But before we do that, we wanted to be sure to make it clear that all of our work supports the district mission. It states in the mission that an engaged community is an element that distinguishes the Shawnee Mission School District. And when relationships are strong between the district and community, it supports our objective to have every child achieve their full potential. So now we're going to break down that montage video. And back to the W questions. Michaela will answer who we communicate to and where.
Yes, so the questions of who and where relates to our audience. As you know, the Shawnee Mission School District spans 14 cities over a 72 square mile radius. Within our boundaries, we have more than 100,000 households. Our work is focused on supporting all departments and schools across the district, as well as providing support to the families and patrons who live in our district boundaries. Our audiences include students and patrons who live in, students, staff, families, prospective employers, the Board of Education, community members without children in the school, current and potential business and community partners, members of the media, and volunteers. So with such a large and varied audience, the question then becomes, what platforms do you use to reach everyone? In the document that we submitted to you this evening through Board Docs, we outlined many of the tactics we use, but we'll highlight a few here tonight. One to note is media relations. Our team serves as a resource to members of the media, providing timely and accurate information about the district and schools. We also have a tremendous opportunity working with the media partners to highlight the work of our staff and students to a wider audience. With this purpose in mind, we frequently share coverage opportunities. In the last 2 years, we've also begun sharing a Friday column in the Shawnee Mission Post. Their audience overlaps our district boundaries, so this has been a really helpful way to reach our community, especially those who may not have a child at our school, but who live within our district boundaries.
Every week of the year, you will find district news on smsd.org and on our biggest social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter, and also YouTube. We share an average of 260 posts and stories each year, and we work to highlight all schools across the district. This content features the learning experiences of our students and staff and essential information for our schools. Followers will see stories like the recent open mic night that was held at Pawnee Elementary to help students learn about poetry, the Real World Learning Store that Shawnee Mission West student entrepreneurs opened at Oak Park Mall, and a group of high school engineering students who built a tactile map of Westridge to help one of our elementary students prepare for 7th grade. One of our largest publications to note is Inside Magazine. This is published 3 times a year in print and digital formats. It highlights students and staff stories. It also reaches more than 100,000 residents each time it is sent to mailboxes. We tell these stories throughout the year because storytelling is a big part of our job, but we also serve as a support team for the district in times of urgency and in times of celebration. For example, throughout the pandemic, the communications team has served in a support role in a variety of ways. Our work to support our community through this time has included informational resources from web pages to videos, to virtual public meeting support, to reworked events like our foundation breakfast, and we found ways to help our community engage and interact.
Some of the reworked events include 2 of the most recent Education Foundation fall breakfasts. The reformatted breakfast included a movie production for remote attendees and a hybrid production this year that we hosted at Shawnee Mission North. The fall breakfast is an important event each year for the foundation and the district that celebrates our students and staff and supports the goals of the foundation. This year, we also produced a Distinguished Leaders Speaker Series event highlighting the senior class of 2021. And another high-profile communication time is when there is inclement weather. Our team shares alerts on multiple platforms to make sure all stakeholders know of cancellations. Our team also supports our school buildings should they encounter a crisis. We collaborate with our district teams, law enforcement, and our school communities so that we can share timely and accurate information. We are on hand to share the information so that building principals can focus on carrying out action plans and taking care of their school community.
In late 2020 and early 2021, one of our big communication efforts was centered around the district bond referendum. We produced and published a webpage, yard signs, a special issue of our magazine, one-sheets, messaging, and videos to help empower and inform our community before they mailed in their ballots. We are grateful our community responded with a vote in favor of a $264 million bond. And as buildings are built and improvements are made, we will continue to tell that story, showing what our community has done for our students. This year, we've also been proud to help launch Read Across SMSD. This is a district-wide celebration of reading hosted in partnership with NEA Shawnee Mission. It encourages reading for all ages and supports our district belief that a community's strength is derived from its diversity. Each month brings a new theme, and each month we launch a video that helps our community focus on that theme. There are book titles featured by NEA and district librarians, and every school in our district is participating in some way. We've enjoyed seeing how the videos have inspired conversations in classrooms across the district. And we mentioned earlier that one of our goals is to help strengthen and engage the Shawnee Mission School District community. So we wanted to highlight 3 examples tonight of points where our support as a communications team has led to community connections. These stories help highlight the why behind what we do.
In January 2021, our community expressed their support for schools by passing the bond referendum. Last May, we planned and hosted a groundbreaking ceremony for Westwood View Elementary, one of the 5 elementary schools that is being rebuilt due to the bond. Groundbreakings are a great opportunity to bring the community, staff, and students together to celebrate and share news about a project. When planning for the event, we learned that the students of Westwood View had a favorite song that had been written by their music teacher and included rap verses that were written by their custodian. And so when we heard this, we just knew that they had to perform. So they did. We asked them to perform. They came to the groundbreaking. They were fantastic. It was one of the very highlights of the day. And so we knew that when we were planning the fall breakfast, we asked to bring them back. We wanted to showcase Westwood View and this amazing story of a relationship between students and staff. So Mr. Williams rapped on stage with the students performing on song by video. It was a fun and meaningful performance and another way to share the wonderful things happening in our schools with our community. Another example is from one of our most viral social media posts that happened the first time we shared information about student food service in March 2020. That was just as schools were shutting down because of the pandemic. At this uncertain time, we directly emailed information to families and shared it on multiple platforms. It prompted hundreds of shares, which we think speaks to the power of the community and the care this community has to make sure our students have what they need. As a result, the students showed up, and we were so pleased to highlight their response as they created artwork and thank you notes to provide to the food service workers and volunteers on site. We were also thrilled to share stories of our food service team and all of our educators and staff members who made meal distribution possible. We also highlighted community partners like Johnson County Library, who handed out books for students, and Kansas City Symphony, who arranged for musicians to play at many of our events.
And we also wanted to highlight one of our biggest productions of the year, which is graduation. And this tremendous celebration for our community involves our graduates, of course, but hundreds of educators, family members, and friends who are there to honor this accomplishment. Each night, for 6 ceremonies, our team provides scoreboard visuals to enhance the experience for everyone who is at the stadiums. We also live stream these events and provide a video for on-demand viewing. We know that these productions reach thousands of people each year as the ceremony is happening. And beyond that, we've also learned that these productions have allowed family members to view internationally, and that in some cases, when family members haven't been able to attend due to serious illness, they've been able to see their child graduate as it happens. These are milestone moments for each of our graduates and their families, and we are proud to help our community join in recognizing that each year.
We know that you know this, but we want to make sure that people who are watching this online know how to connect with us via social media at the SMSD on both Facebook and on Twitter. You can visit our website, www.smsd.org. I want to again thank my team for the presentation and all of the team for helping to put it together. And we want to make ourselves available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much for that very thorough presentation and reports. I was exhausted after just reading the report. I want to first go to Dr. Hubbard or Dr. Gilhouse. Or is there anything you want to add to that before we entertain board questions?
No, they do an outstanding job for us, and they do such a great job of getting the word out into our communities, as well as communicating with our building administration and teachers anytime there's a hot topic or just general information needs to be shared. So we commend them and keep up the great work.
Yeah, I would just add thank you to the communications team. They're always very supportive of our work and do an amazing job, so thank you.
Thank you both for that. Let's start with, move down one. Let's start with Mr. Stratton with questions.
Great presentation. I'm continually impressed with the continued growing and evolving role of communications. It's a tough wave to keep up with, so thank you for doing what you do. I'm always curious how much interaction you're having with students, and are students proactively coming to you for suggestions, et cetera, meaning, you know, hey, we're following you on Twitter, or you should do this, or hey, let me help you design that, or I'm curious where students play into this as well. I'm sure they have ideas.
Interesting question. The last part of it, we don't get a lot of suggestions necessarily from students. The video production folks in particular have worked with students on graduations, on the Encounter program, and we'd like to do more. One of the things we talk about in terms of future is to do more to build out our studio so that we can do more kinds of studio productions with our students. But, I mean, we would love to hear more from our students. I think there are some ways in which they would probably have suggestions for us about how to reach them that are different than some of our other audiences. Do either of you want to join in?
I think that covered it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Boyd-Nerona?
I don't necessarily have a question, but just to commend the department. No one can be everywhere all the time, but you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Borgman?
Thank you for that presentation. Fun fact, Clayton and I used to work together at KTKA News Source 49 in Topeka many moons ago when we both were getting into the broadcast business. So a hat tip to Clayton for sticking with it. I just wanted to know, there's so much going on in the district. How on earth do you determine what to cover?
Let my team answer that one, because they make those decisions much of the time.
We work to be in touch with our school leadership, with our teams that work in this building, to try and encourage everyone to let us know ahead of time when something is happening, if there's an event or if there's a classroom activity that would be great to be highlighted. We always accept story ideas from our community as well. adcommun@smsd.org, I can put it in the recap. It is also a great way to send us news tips if you know of something that should be highlighted within our community.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you good? All right, thank you. Ms. Hembry?
Yeah, thank you for the excellent report. My question was just around and I saw this some in the written report, but maybe not here with the presentation. I know that the communications team plays a role in getting the word out, but you also have a responsibility and a role you play in getting the word in through thought exchange and other listening devices. Could you speak a little bit about the role of the communications team and kind of bringing information into the district to inform our decision making?
Sure, and you mentioned one of the tools that we use. We began using Thought Exchange with Dr. Fulton and the strategic plan. And if those of you who have had experience with it, Thought Exchange is a platform that allows us to put a question out and allow the community to engage around that question without having to put forward a specific set of ideas. It allows the cloud, as it were, to decide, here's what we care about, and to actually be able to vote or to indicate how they react to the ideas of others. So it's been a really powerful tool that we work to support a variety of folks in using. We see it used at the individual team level in school buildings, at the individual school building level, within specific departments, and across the district as a whole. We also, as Ms. Babcock mentioned, we have the Ask the District function that's at the bottom of every web page. And we solicit information that way. We respond to every question that we get. Sometimes people aren't actually asking us a question, but rather telling us what they think we need to know. So those will get a thank you, and that's about it. But we encourage information in a variety of ways and try to listen. We think that we're only as good as our ability to listen and understand where the community is. So that's an important part of our function.
All right, thank you. Ms. Borgman?
No.
Oh, I mean, Ms. Goodburn, I'm looking at you. Ms. Goodburn, so sorry.
Thank you for the report. I appreciate it. The width and breadth of the things that you all deal with in your department, just like every department in the school district, is just is constantly amazing. So thank you for your work. And I just wanted to give a shout out. I think the graphic design work is fabulous, and I love, we changed the logo a few years back, and the incantations, or whatever that word is, of the logo that you all use, and the graphics and the colors, I think are just fabulous. So good work. I think a lot of the posts are very engaging, and the work that you do around that logo and keeping true to that branding is good work. So great report. Thanks.
Thank you. Mandy Lavelle is our designer, and she keeps all of us on point with our logo and making sure we use it appropriately. And it does help to have a very clear and distinct brand, so I appreciate her work in that.
All right. I was just looking through the written report and just reading through like the areas of support. There's like almost 30 areas of support noted, from media relations to crisis support. I think you touched on them in the overview. And then kind of sample frequent, just of how frequently each of those might be used. So could you just speak a little bit more? I'm just thinking, so for example, about the website. The website is a one-stop kind of hub for information for our community and for our staff and our students. So how across all these, can you just speak a little bit about how that's managed, how that's updated, how that workload is shared?
Yes, we can.
Sure. I mean, I have to point back to what David said about how we are a team. Sometimes certain things rise in priority depending on the day. Having several of us cross-trained in the tasks that we need to carry out, I think helps us all support each other. Our days are sometimes unpredictable, and when we are all able to support each other, I think we can handle those unpredictabilities while also maintaining all of the steady tactics that we use to communicate with our community.
I would just add to that, I think we try to use our experience. We're very intentional about what gets shared how, and we know that certain platforms work for sharing information with particular groups. And when we're challenged in today's modern era because all of us have way too much information. So we try to be sensitive to making sure that we're targeting the people that we need to reach with a particular message with the tool that's best designed to reach that particular audience. But it does take a lot of conversation with the team in order to manage all that and to keep all of the balls in the air.
Your task of helping to share our story and communicate our story when there is, it's hard to kind of get the word out sometimes through competing channels and counter narratives is impressive and applauded and appreciated. Thank you very much. Shawnee Mission does amazing work, all the people around here, so thank you for getting our story out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, I totally skipped Ms. Owsley, so sorry.
Okay. I just wanted to say I appreciate, well, really, since David got here and this team does such a good job, but the board recaps, and that was not something that was in existence just a few years ago. I get, people really appreciate that, so that if they can't catch the meeting and just getting that in their inbox. And then I appreciate the work to have a column in the Shawnee Mission Post, because having creative ways of getting a hold of people who may not read the mail, but they're on Facebook, and so they see that Shawnee Mission Post update, so I appreciate that. And then I had one final question, because, I guess I haven't really asked a question yet, but do we have an Instagram? We don't, do we?
Not at the moment, and we
So
are, go ahead.
I really think you should get an Instagram, David. Because I think it's a really great platform to share pictures of cute kids. So
Yeah.
I just thought, is there a possibility that we could get an Instagram?
Absolutely.
Okay,
There's a possibility.
All right, I like possibilities. That's my last question. Thanks, Mary.
Anyone else? One more. Okay, Mr. Stratton.
I couldn't help but ask, so how do you guys determine who works snow days when you have to get up at 3 and 4 in the morning to make those huge announcements that 27,000 kids are waiting to hear?
We all get up at 3 or 4 in the morning. Takes a team. We can't, no one could do it by themselves. So
Well, thank you for
we're
doing
all
that.
up.
I kind of knew the answer to that, but that's an incredible part of your job that most people don't realize. It's not the typical 8 to 5, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Ms. Hembry, anything else?
Nothing additional from me, thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, the next 5 items on the discussion agenda are related to board policy. And so I am going to look to maybe Dr. Hubbard and Ms. Borgman Dr. Gilhouse. Oh my gosh, Ms. Goodburn, I am so sorry. It's okay, I started off doing pretty good. Okay, anyhow, if you could give us an overview, these all appear to be first reads, so let's maybe.
Sure. Policy JBC is an issue, a change in eligibility, and so we are updating our language to align with the Kansas State High Schools Activities Association and the change in eligibility there. That is the only change to JBC.
Okay. And because it's a first reading, I'm going to look to the 3 past presidents up here. Do we take questions at this time or just go through each one?
You could take questions at this time, but usually we just read it and then you have the opportunity to think about it and ask questions at the next board meeting or to pose those questions to Dr. Hubbard.
Okay. So we'll just walk through each item. Okay. All right. So we should move on to 5.03, correct? Is that where I'm at? Okay, thank you.
And policy JDD, the language is just outdated. So that is simply a change in language, and that is to align with KASB. And we definitely had the appropriate staff that reviewed that policy. And again, it's just to align with KASB as the majority of that policy.
Okay, thank you. And 504?
504, JCD was not necessary due to all of the revisions that we made in JDD. So it was very redundant. So the recommendation is to exclude policy JCD because it is repetitive from policy JDD.
Okay, so the student discipline component is already captured in the suspension and expulsion procedures.
That is correct.
That's the theory. Okay. All right, 504?
JCDA is simply to align with KASB. And again, we involved appropriate staff to reflect that, as well as the policy review committee, and it's just to update the language.
Okay, so student conduct is just an update as well. And then 506?
506, policy IDACA is outdated statutory language with regards to special education. And so we have updated that language to be in alignment with KASB. And again, utilized our special education appropriate staff on that.
Okay. So if any board members has questions or concerns, and then in the convening weeks before our next board meeting, direct those to our superintendent, Dr. Hubbard, and our board policy chair, Ms. Goodburn. Sorry, okay. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to consent items. Approval, so barring, unless someone has an item they would like to pull from the consent, I will look for a motion to approve.
So moved. Oh, Owsley?
Second, Goodburn.
Okay, so first Owsley, and we have a second from Ms. Goodburn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. All right, typically during a workshop, we do not have action items, but we do have one this evening, 8.1, approval of the updated second semester COVID mitigation measures. So this is, I believe, I will actually just look to you, either Dr. Hubbard or Dr. Gilhouse to.
Well, I appreciate it. So at this time, based on the recommendation that we're making to the Board of Education, I'd like for Dr. Christy Ziegler, Chief of Student Services, to update us on the proposed mitigating measures.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some additional information, given some updates we've recently received from Johnson County Department of Health and Environment. And before you this evening is an amended mitigation plan. My colleague, Mr. Smith, is going to help drive this as we walk through some of the changes. Since our last meeting, we did receive an update from JCDHE in writing. I'm going to share a component of that, or several pieces from that, but basically what the county has given us is updates that aligns the decision for some of the exclusions with the recent CDC updates that came in December. And that is helpful to us. So I'm going to share those updates with you this evening, but one of the key pieces, a couple of key pieces I do want to share from the county is that they are working to provide some expanded guidance to us, and they have reviewed what I'm sharing with you this evening and provided us feedback on the plan prior to us bringing it forward. Key components that the county maintains in their guidance to us are based on 3 primary evidence-based mitigation strategies. Number 1 is to promote vaccination and continued masking wherever possible. Number 2, to exclude persons with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 infection for at least 5 days from symptom onset or positive test. So you will see that reflected in our proposed changes. And number 3, require mask wearing among those with COVID-19 for 5 days following the isolation period. So again, this is in alignment with the CDC general public guidance that came out, I believe, on the 27th of December. Still stated, any person, including student, faculty, or staff member diagnosed with COVID-19 infection must be excluded from school for the appropriate period of isolation, and Kansas statute is cited there, so no change there. And then I think important to note as we get into this, it does state in the letter from the county, additionally, CDC shortened the recommended quarantine period for susceptible individuals to 5 days, followed by strict mask use for an additional 5 days. However, recognizing that intensive contact tracing within schools is no longer feasible given the current situation, I believe that's reflecting community transmission levels right now, priority should be given to exclusion of infected individuals. So those are some key things to note that we've received since our last meeting. Okay. In our proposed plan, so we'll start at the top, each piece that is added to the existing board-approved document is highlighted in red, so I'll take those one at a time. So should this plan be adopted, it would go into effect tomorrow, January 11th, 2022, and will apply to all previously identified cases who are currently excluded. So we would enact this guidance tomorrow, and anyone who has received guidance since we've returned from winter break would fall under the new time periods that are stated in the plan. Okay? There are no other additions on the first page, so we're going to flip down to the second page. There is a component, given what we just experienced coming back from an extended break, and who would have known that we would have been dealing with something called Omicron in the community levels that we experienced. So added in here, you'll see double asterisks in red. If school building rates of required exclusion and quarantine are unknown due to one of the extended district breaks, such as Thanksgiving, winter, spring, or summer breaks, and the percent positive rate is 8% or higher according to our JCDHE dashboard. So that 8% is the mark for substantial transmission in the community. All buildings will return to school with full mask requirements until data can be collected to determine the actual building rate. This time period will be no longer than 1 week unless individual buildings are greater than 3%. So we did find ourselves in a unique situation. We know that testing was difficult for families to come by over the winter break, and we really hadn't had an opportunity to get a good indicator of where Omicron, where COVID positivity rates within our schools, within our community would have been met. So this is a safeguard for that in the future. Continuing down, the next section under Johnson County Department of Health and Environment, exclusion from school or work guidance. The first bullet remains as it once previously read, with the exception of anyone testing positive would be excluded for 5 days from the onset of symptoms or positive test. So the 5-day had read 10. The next bullet is updated language. So if an individual tests positive for COVID-19 or is suspected of having COVID-19, they are symptomatic. Regardless of vaccination status, they would stay home for 5 days from symptom onset or test date, whichever is first. If symptoms resolve or improving after 5 days, students and staff can return to school and school-related activities. Once returned, individuals must wear a mask for days 6 through 10. Individuals with COVID-19 should also remain separated in instances where they cannot mask, so that would be lunch and breakfast primarily. Individuals returning during days 6 through 10 should refrain from activities that make consistent and proper mask wearing impossible. Activities that involve frequent or sustained close contact, example would be certain sports, and activities that increase the risk of transmission of aerosolized respiratory particles. If you have a fever, continue to stay home until your fever resolves for 24 hours without the aid of medication. Much of the next page then is new addition language. So if an individual was exposed to someone with COVID-19 and fully vaccinated, has been boosted, or completed the primary series of Pfizer or Moderna within the last 5 months, or completed primary series of J&J within the last 2 months, they must wear a mask around others for 10 days from the date of exposure, PCR or lab-confirmed antigen test on day 5 of exposure, eat 6 feet away from others, so those unmasking situations, we'd want to have a little bit of safety there. If you develop symptoms, again, then you would test and then stay home until documentation of a negative test result is provided to the school nurse. So each of these pieces moving forward with exposure, the reason I shared that information from the county communication is this falls into the contact tracing, which we know our county is inundated with cases right now, and that's what Dr. Ariola's communication to the school districts in the letter, along with the health services coordinators, states that that intensive contact tracing is no longer feasible. It's difficult. So with all of this in the section that discusses exposures, the challenge for us is we don't have the opportunity or the ability to contact trace due to the high rates. What we will work to provide is support for when a positive individual shares information. That's the extent that we can cover contact tracing and support for the county at this time. So I just want to be open and transparent about that. That's the situation that we're in. The next piece deals and provides guidance if someone is exposed to someone with COVID-19 and not fully vaccinated, and that is defined as someone who's completed the primary series of Pfizer or Moderna more than 5 months ago and are not boosted, or completed the primary series of J&J within 2 months and are not boosted or unvaccinated. We've provided 2 caveats here. If test to stay is not available, we know that test to stay is difficult right now for school districts in the county because of the high burden, the high need for testing that is in our community and the limited resources to meet the needs right now. That is a challenge. So we provided an opportunity for if it is not available and what that guidance would look like, and then if it is available. Again, with anything, if individuals who have been exposed to a positive case develop symptoms, they would get a PCR lab-confirmed test, stay home until documentation of a negative result is provided to the nurse. We've added a statement in here that states testing for those exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms will be prioritized at our testing site. Test to stay will be available as capacity allows. When community transmission and testing demands are high, test to stay may be suspended until testing demands decrease. So that is a challenge for us right now. And I believe the only additional component in this document is an update under exclusion. I think at one point that had stated required, and it is recommended for staff. Asymptomatic staff will not be recommended by JCDHE to quarantine if they show proof of vaccination. So their guidance would basically follow what was stated previous in the document. All right. That is the extent of the updates to the plan. Shall we look at winter guidance or take that separately?
It's all the same. We should look at it.
It's brief, so
Okay,
maybe
yeah.
I'll just go ahead and
It
include
is.
that.
Yes.
Let's put it together as one.
Okay.
So you also have loaded in board docs. We went and just double checked with the changes how this would fare with our winter event guidance that was provided at the end of the semester, the previous semester. The only updates to this document you will find on the second page under secondary schools, the first bullet states masks optional indoors. And the only addition to this is it's just keeping parallel to the board-approved plan. Unless buildings are above the 3% threshold, then the facility would require masks. That's the only update to the winter guidance.
Dr. Ziegler, thank you for walking us through that. Dr. Hubbard, did you have any comments you wanted to add at this point?
I don't think at this point, but I am available for questions if you guys have any.
Okay. And Dr. Gilhouse? Okay.
Nothing this time.
Okay. All right. So let's see if we have some board questions. And Dr. Boyd-Nerone, I hate to put you on the spot, first one. So how about I jump to Ms. Borgman and you can wrap up.
Thank you for that presentation. Okay, so if I understand you correctly, on page 3, Dr. Ziegler, basically so what the county is saying is that because there is not the staff to do contact tracing, is this essentially honor system, or what are you saying here?
So here's a great example, and it gives me an opportunity to recognize our amazing nurses in the buildings right now, and our attendance clerks, and our school office secretaries that have been fielding a barrage of phone calls since we came back to school. We are getting a lot of questions from families who have exposures and are seeking guidance of us. So in those instances where families are seeking out guidance from our nurses, they know that there's a positive case in their home, they're seeking, what do I do? That's where this guidance would likely come into play. If we have a family that has a positive test result that comes back, we're going to follow up and let them know what their timeline is. In that conversation, we're going to encourage our families to reach out to anyone that they've been in close contact with and share that information directly to the extent they can. And then if through the conversation that is shared with us, then we will follow up to the extent we possibly can. So that might be in high-risk situations where we know that students maybe have difficulty masking. To the extent that we can provide that information forward, we will, but it's just a challenge right now.
Is it okay to ask one more? Is that right?
Yes.
So with regards to masking, I know everybody is in masks right now because of the crazy high amount. When that threshold drops to 3%, which probably won't be for a while, but when it does, with regards to the 5-day masking, when there is a positive test, who's keeping track of how long, how on earth are teachers, administrators, nurses supposed to keep track of all these kids? And if it's day 4 or day 5 or day 3, how is this going to work?
That is a great question to ask. And what we've talked about is we will provide support to the extent that we possibly can. But we're also going to ask for that support from our community, from our families, because this is, again, one of those pressure points that comes into our school administrators, our teachers, our nurses. We don't have the additional staff to follow through with that to the extent that we probably would love to be able to, so we are going to ask for community support in those areas. We'll do the best that we can, but again, with the numbers where they are, I don't know that I have a better answer than that.
Thank you, Dr. Ziegler. I appreciate all your hard work. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Borgman. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Ms. Hembry.
You're so confident.
Can we just call everybody Ms. Borgman? Ms. Borgman, Ms. Borgman? Does that work? I don't know. Actually, I was going to Ms. Hembry, who was next on the queue.
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair, and thank you, Dr. Ziegler, for all the great work on this. I really appreciate seeing this thought through so carefully and brought to us ready to go and incorporating all of the newest guidance that we've gotten even in the last 24 hours. So no questions for me, just a big thank you for the hard work.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, Ms. Goodburn.
No questions from me either, other than thank you for all the quick work last week, too, when, after Monday's decision and finding out on Tuesday what the data was, when I think we thought it was going to be a little bit longer. I know you all, I'm sure, all hands on deck to get that done, so I appreciate that, the hard work.
I send that thanks on to our nurses and our staff in the buildings. Thank you.
I've just two quick checks for clarification. So the addition there on returning from break, then that just provides that caveat for if something were to happen spring break, we kind of have a plan in place.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for doing that. And the other piece, just to run a question. So if we have, under the current conditions, somebody has symptoms, they're home for 5 days, if they return and the building rate is still above 3%, then everyone just remains masked. But so the idea is if you have symptoms, if you have COVID, stay home for 5 days and until you're symptom-free and then
And then
return.
if you come back before the 10-day exclusion, you would mask days 6 through 10, regardless if the building was masked or not.
Right.
Yep.
But we would assume everyone, if it's above 3%, would stay in mask. If
Correct.
it's below, that's when you start the count.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Owsley?
So I have a question just for clarifying. So we adopted to follow Keisha's guidance for extracurricular activities. So the winter guidance document is just for events, but not for extracurriculars. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So if it's an event at the building after school, but it's not an extracurricular and we're over 3%, then they are masking.
Any event, activity, fine arts performance, if we are over the 3% threshold, our plan is to mask our students. When we drop below that, it becomes optional at that time.
Right. I'm just clarifying that there's a distinction. So like if you go to your kid's art show at the building, you are wearing a mask, but if you go to their basketball game, you are not wearing a mask, or potentially it's optional. Is that correct?
Depends on the threshold. If we're over the 3% threshold in our school, you're wearing a mask to the game is the recommendation.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make
Yes.
sure. Okay,
Yes.
so because Keisha's guidance was mask optional
That is correct.
across the board.
That is correct.
So this will apply, so we are putting in a more conservative approach than what Keisha had in place with this.
Yeah.
This will apply to that.
All based on our building's threshold.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's appreciated. And also a giant thank you to the nurses who did all of that work on Wednesday to get that done. I know that they put in like 2 weeks worth of work in a 10-hour period, and I'm glad that they're going to have a 5-day window in which to do that moving forward. I think it's really appreciated.
Ms. Owsley, I just want to add to that a little bit. I want to add that this would include the district's aquatic center. So whoever the host school is, if they are above the 3% threshold, the aquatic center indeed would be masked as well.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Stratton.
No questions from me.
Okay. Ms. Boyd-Nerona.
Yes, I don't have any questions, but I just, as a board member, as a parent, and just a human being, I want us to start thinking, the community to start thinking about where we're going to find this new normal. I hear in your voice, Dr. Ziegler, that we're trying. We're all trying.
We have hope that this will end sooner than later. We have hope, but it's going to take all of us together to get there.
And I hear you and agree full-heartedly with you that more individual accountability needs to come into play. Just what I saw and heard from what the schools experienced from coming back, and just the nursing staff, all the staff members, and it touched me. So I just want to encourage everyone to, as we're looking for this new, some type of normalcy, to also look at ourselves for the individual accountability, because that's really, I think, is where this tide is really going to turn, when we really look at our individual accountability, what we can do in this whole, the big scheme of things. So I hear you, and I understand exactly what you're saying.
Thank you.
Thank you, though. Thank you.
And Ms. Borgman?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so could you talk about test to stay? Is this an option right now for Shawnee Mission, or how does this look?
I'm so pleased that you asked that question. I don't think there's any secret that testing in our metro is a difficult situation to get into. It hit over the break. Families were experiencing that. We have put communication out right now to our nurses that we're focusing on trying to get caught up from all of the contacts that have come since we returned last week. We are still getting an influx of calls through the school office, through our nurses, and again, we're right now putting a pause on Test to Stay today so that we can work to get our positives, our symptomatic individuals through testing, and is that a priority per the county, what they have guided us to. What we will do, and we've worked with MAUD, our testing partner, is that they will be providing testing services on Sunday. We don't have school on Monday because of a holiday. So we will also be offering testing Monday, and we hope that by those 2 additional days that we will be able to get more families in. Right now, I will tell you it's about a 2 to 3 day wait to schedule. So again, hope is my word tonight. I am hopeful that we can get our symptomatic family members, our students, our staff taken care of, and then get back to test to stay operational.
Okay, and a follow-up to that, thank you. With regards to Test to Stay, do we have to use, or do students and staff have to use the MAUD laboratory? Can they go to their own physician's office and get tested, or?
Absolutely, yes. And the additional information the nurses received today list even more community resource options, including, contacting local physicians. Pediatricians' offices are running. We just ask it be a lab-based result. So yes, you can go to your provider and provide that as your result for documentation.
Okay, and then I'm assuming the at-home tests would not qualify?
They would not, and I know those are hard to come by, but they would provide some information. If you've got symptoms going on in your home, it gives you another resource.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, looking for any other questions? So I
move to approve item 8.1.
I'll second that.
all right.
Goodburn.
All in favor of approving the updated second semester COVID mitigation measures, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you for all that work. So our final item on the agenda is comments from the board. And I believe it is Ms. Goodburn's turn to start.
I actually don't have any.
I'm going to go last. I'm going to skip over. Ms. Hembry, do you have any comments at this point?
I just wanted to take a moment. I'm so sorry I'm not there tonight, April, to welcome you to the Shawnee Mission School District Board of Education. I'm so thrilled to be serving alongside you. I can guarantee you it will be a very wild ride, and you will find yourself on a steep learning curve, just like everyone up on the dais tonight. And that's to be expected. So I just encourage you to continue having patience with yourself and know that every person was a new member of this board at some point as well. And then I just want to briefly thank everyone in our community for just weathering this storm alongside Shawnee Mission. I know we all feel like we've been thrown back to March 2020 and a lot of upheaval and uncertainty, and we're all tired and we're all done. And while there is so much that COVID has taken away and continues to take away from us, I just want us to remind ourselves that we can't let it take away our ability to be kind and graceful and patient and respectful towards one another. So, April, I hope to serve alongside you with this spirit of kindness and grace, and watch you on your learning curve. It's going to be exciting to see you evolve onto this board, and I'm glad to be serving with you. That's all for me.
Thank you. I'll close out. Okay. Ms. Ousley?
Welcome aboard, April. And that may be all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Stratton?
I'll add my welcomes to April. Thank you for agreeing to take on this role and for being elected. We always forget how much work goes on to even get at this seat, and you experienced that, and thank you for sticking with it and doing that. I want to say a thank you to Mrs. Owsley for weathering 2 incredible years as our leader. I was just saying to her before the meeting, I think in our 50-plus years of Shawnee Mission School District, I don't know that a school board president's ever had to navigate what you had over the last 2 years, so thank you for your leadership.
I'd just like to say that it was an honor to run with the 2 esteemed current or returning board members that I did. It was a learning curve while that process was ongoing. So, but yet and still, I'm excited to serve in this capacity, and for this to have been a historical moment for this time as we continue to help Shawnee Mission be strong, be and stay strong.
Thank you. Ms. Borgman?
Yes, Ms. Owsley, congratulations. I hope life is a little easier now for you. And yeah, you really hung in there for a difficult couple of years, so well done. Congratulations, Dr. Sinclair. All of your amazing years of public education advocacy is going to serve our district extremely well. So thank you for all you have done and all you will continue to do as board president, and your advocation for public education. So thank you. April, your welcome, I guess, speech, I'm not sure if it's really a speech, but your intro, I guess, gave me chills. It was just beautiful. And thank you for sharing that interesting piece of Shawnee Mission history with us. And I could not be more proud to sit next to you. You are a voice that is needed and has been missed. And you are just a very welcome and needed role and person on the school board. So thank you. You have a lot of allies. I also just want to thank all of the nurses for all that they did after students returned from break. I do, apologize for all of that work. I wish that we could go back and redo some things and review some policy and sort of have made things better going into last week. So thank you for all that you did and your hard work and just really showing up for kids day in and day out, because I know you're all exhausted. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I would close by first also adding to my welcome to you, April. Thank you for stepping up and running, and I'm grateful to be serving with you and getting to know you on the board. Heather, I would also like to extend my gratitude. It's been 2 incredibly challenging years, and I appreciate your leadership in not only helping launch the strategic plan and pulling in community input, helping be a part of changing the dynamic in the way we move forward with negotiations. We're in a much healthier place, I believe, and helping us navigate through COVID. So I hope that's all behind us as I step into this role, but it's, I've had a front row seat and I know how difficult it has been, so thank you. And I'm also grateful to be serving as president with 3 past presidents on the board to help make sure I get everybody's name right at one point. With that, I believe our meeting is adjourned. We'll see you on January 24th. Thank you.